Hi everyone. Hope you guys can see me and hear me. If you can, please just use the chat window on the right. If you can see me and hear me clearly, so that I can start off with the session. Just waiting for maybe getting up. Maybe the messages are a little bit delayed and it's not exactly a live stream. So if I can get maybe just one message in the live chat window, so I know that it's perfectly okay. Okay, so I think Himanshu is there, Siddharth is there, Gaurav is there. I think the messages are a little bit delayed and that might be causing this sort of a lag. I believe someone from our team should be here as well. So anyone from our team who is there, please ensure that the whatever messages that you are sending to me, you're sending on Hangout. I have the Hangout open on mobile if there is anything that you want to communicate with me directly. Hi Shikhar, hi Arvind. Just water, guys. So to begin with, what essentially are we going to talk about in this session? Primarily, what I'm going to discuss is how to actually prepare for decision making in this particular session. So I will try to keep it anywhere around 30 minutes to 45 minutes. So not more than 30 minutes is my target. And maybe after that, I'll take a few questions that you guys might have. So to begin with, what is the agenda for XAT decision making? That is for today's session. First of all, we'll talk about what is the history of decision making in XAT. So how it started, how it's going, how many questions have been asked, so on and so forth. Then we'll talk about why is it even important, what criteria should we consider, what makes the DM as probably the most important section in the XAT exam, what type of questions are asked, how to prepare for it, and how to actually solve the questions. So these are the 5 main points that I'd like to cover in today's session. For those of you who are enrolled in our decision-making course, well and good. For those of you who are not enrolled in the decision-making course, you can use the coupon code CLASS, and that particular coupon code will actually give you a 10% discount on the same. So you can use that. Now, this is the history part of XAT decision-making questions that I was talking about. That over the last many years, I think I made a slight mistake in the PPT. This should be 2020 year. This should be 2020. Let me see if I can edit it on the fly. Will I be allowed to do that? I'm not very sure. Just give me 1 second. Okay. No, I think this is already loaded, so can't really be edited this way. So as I was saying, if you look at the history, there were 24, 23, 23 questions which were asked in the earlier years. But from 2017 till 2020, the number of questions has been fixed at 21. Now, the number of sets keeps on changing, but over the last few years, from now on, you can actually expect 7 sets of 3 questions each. That would be a fair enough expectation. That would be a fair enough parameter. So that's essentially the idea for this. Now, why is it important? See, first of all, obviously 28% of the paper, so that makes it important. But over and above that, there are some reasons why I say decision making is the most important section in the XAT exam. Because A, these questions take less time to solve. So if you look at comparatively the LR sets or the DI sets, they take a lot longer. So that's something that puts decision making in an advantageous position. It's easy. So once again, that traditionally is a very difficult paper. The kind of questions that you get in verbal or the kind of questions that you get in quant, they are really, really hard. If you look at the historic data, decision making has remained, even though the number of questions, if you realize, is lesser than average. So 21 questions in decision making, if you compare it with the others, quant is typically 24, 25, and verbal is typically 25, 26. So they're all on the higher side when you compare with decision making. But even then, the cutoff, the percentiles let's say how many questions you require to solve for a 90 percentile, that's actually a lot higher in decision making. So these questions are easy. Another part, what makes it advantageous for students who put in the effort or who take in the time to do it, is that most students actually ignore this particular part. And if you don't ignore it, you can actually do really well. And it's not hard. Even if, let's say, you start today, give a couple of hours a day from today till the exam, you will be able to improve in it fairly quickly. Then moving to the next idea, the next topic, what type of questions are asked in that decision making? There are some questions which are based on ethical dilemmas, as in what would be the moral thing to do, what would be the right thing to do. There are some questions which are based on managerial issues. Let's say the decisions that you would be required to make as a manager of a company, maybe something like who you should hire or who should be fired or what appropriate action should be taken if, let's say, you are the CEO of a company. Then now pure logic questions have become kind of rare over the last 2 years. So 2019 and 2020 did not have them. But before that, till 2018, you got a lot of questions which were based on pure mathematical logic. Okay, do this, do this, do this. Didn't really require much decision making, but more on the calculation and the logic part. There are questions which are often based on financial issues where you need to know a little bit of math to actually figure out what is a good deal and what is a bad deal. So that's also something which is asked. Then in these type of questions, it's very important that you do an ROI analysis. What do I mean by ROI analysis? A return on investment analysis. So what happens in these? So ethical dilemmas, typically your accuracy is pretty low in this. Accuracy is on the medium category, whereas the time spent is low because you can just quickly read through these questions. There isn't, very deep level understanding that is required. In managerial issues, you need to go through each and every sentence a little more carefully because, you'll get questions like, say, for example, last year we had a question in 2020. I made a video for that. So we had a question about, what should you do because for your sales representatives who have to make a lot of trips. So that was a managerial question which was asked. And then you were supposed to decide on multiple factors. Let's say what is best for the company, what is best for the policy making, for the HR policy making about the people who are traveling and stuff. Pure logic and financial issue questions, you need to spend more time on calculating, on figuring out the exact numbers, but the accuracy is pretty high in them as well. So that's another thing or another factor that you should essentially consider before deciding on any of these issues. Then how you should actually prepare for it. So before I get to the how actually you should prepare for it, I will just check if there are any questions that I can answer with respect to what we have discussed till now. You can use the chat window for the same. In the meantime, for those of you who are not registered in our course, you can use the coupon code CLASS. The price for the decision-making course is $699 plus GST. I will move in case there are no questions, at least I don't see any. Then, how you should actually prepare for that decision-making. What are the things that you need to keep in mind? One is that you need to spend a little bit of time on concept building. So we have concept videos for that. This session in particular can be considered a concept building session for decision making. Going through previous year papers is really, really important. That is something that you should be kept on the top of your priority list. You need to solve at least 200 questions. You need to solve at least 200 questions for clarity and for practice and for various help that you can get in this regard. Now, where to get those 200 questions? Sectional mocks. So our course has 5 sectional mocks for decision making. So that should help. That should give you a certain idea. Full length XAT mocks. We have 5 full length XAT mocks. That's also something that you should take, either ours or from anywhere else. Just check for any more questions. So nothing there. Then it's a 3-week study plan that I would recommend for students. You go through concept videos, you go through the reading material in week 2. Once again, this should have been solved examples. So in our course, you will see there are concept videos, there is a lot of reading material, and there are concept videos as well. So that's something that you can and should check out. So solved examples are there. Every week, try to target past year papers for 4 years. So 10, 11, 12, 13 in the first one, 13, 14, 15, 16 in the next one, 17, 18, 19, 20 in the last one. As far as the mocks are concerned, 1, 2, 2. So 2 mocks a week, I personally believe should be more than enough. Then comes the question of how should you actually solve a question? Well, when you're trying to solve a decision-making question, think of these rules. So keep this in mind, that you need to identify who the key stakeholders are. So let's say in the example that I took, your key stakeholder could be the manager who is looking at the benefit of the employees from a financial perspective, or it could be that you're looking for a long-term 25-year vision sort of picture. Or it could be you are looking at how are you going to present it. So CEO, the way he'll present it to the board, or the way CEO would do a media report, they can be a little bit different. So you need to identify the audience that these questions are being solved for. You need to resolve ethical dilemmas. So let's say in case of a question where there is an ethical dilemma. So once again, I'll take an example from 2020. There was a question which was based on a water source, and the water source was being contaminated, and what should be done. You cannot lose sight of the priority of people's health. You cannot take decisions which are good financially, but they might be ethically the wrong thing to do, and you will know what is the wrong thing to do. Remove personal biases. Now, there might be people who here believe that a lot of doctors are bad doctors because they prescribe a lot of tests, because they give unnecessary operations and stuff like that. So you can have that sort of a viewpoint about doctors, or you can have an alternative viewpoint about doctors, that doctors are the most noble profession. They actually save lives. They work really hard, and in the current crisis, they are kind of our frontline workers. So you can have both the opinions, but when you are solving a decision-making question, you need to remove any personal biases that you have before actually taking a call on that. Analytical reasoning is important, especially in questions like which are based on finances and pure logic. You need to make some sort of a flowchart which will help you decide. Some of the rules which I've personally felt that they help in solving questions. What would Batman do? So think of Batman or Gandhi or Jesus or anyone who you consider as an ethical person, where you remove constraints of personal issues like what you like, what you dislike. You remove issues that what is good from purely from a business perspective. You need to remove that, especially when you are solving decision-making questions. Humanity is superior to everything else. So this point was once again highlighted in some of the questions that were there in that 2020. So let's say when you were talking about, your lowest level representatives who are doing sales jobs, sales representatives, or when you're thinking about villagers who might be using that contaminated water, you need to prioritize humanity whenever any decision needs to be taken. Employers' goals, once again, you need to be very clear about what the goals are in terms of maybe a short-term image-driven, what they should present in front of the media, or they could be long-term goals, as in what the company wants to do in the next 5 years, next 10 years, and what do they want to achieve. So those things need to be considered. Ignorance of law is no excuse. So you sometimes you might get a question about, okay, so a person did this, which was illegal or unethical, or maybe he gave a fake bill to get a higher reimbursement from the company, and they did not know that this was a fireable offense. Well, them not knowing if it is a fireable offense or not does not change anything. If what they did deserves to be fired, then you need to fire that person. So so there are instances where you need to be strict. So whenever there is a law or a rule involved, the person breaking the law or breaking the rule not knowing it is not good enough. Then this is something I've found immensely helpful in eliminating options. See, all questions will give you 4 options, and you'll need to kind of figure out which option works. Invariably, one option will be don't do anything, delay it, decide after 6 months, or something like that. If a question is asked, if a decision-making question is asked, then you're supposed to take a decision. You are supposed to decide among the choices. Not making a decision is a decision itself, and not making a decision is 99% of the time a bad decision. So maintaining staying status quo or not changing anything or delaying tactics, they are always a bad idea. So you can use that to very clearly eliminate an option. Then sometimes some of the choices that you have, they are once again unrelated to the question. So let's say if the question is talking about how you should deal with the water supply being contaminated, one of the options will be that, okay, you don't worry about the current water supply and you source your water from somewhere else. Now that is not the right approach. That is not the right approach. That is not something that should be, done. So that's the wrong way to deal with it. That's something that should be avoided, the unrelated stuff. And in some of the options, what you will see is they're trying to achieve actually opposite of what your intended goal is. So once again, these are the easiest to spot. These are the easiest to spot what is actually opposite. Eliminate those. Maintaining status quo, delaying tactics should be eliminated. Unrelated to the question should be eliminated. You will see 90% of the time, nearly 2 choices will be eliminated based on this only out of 5 options. And then you will be left to decide among the 3 based upon what is best. So these 3 steps should be used for eliminating choices. These 4 steps should be used for figuring out what the answer should be. Then, how to attempt decision making in the exam? I very strongly recommend that you attempt decision making in the middle of the paper. Don't leave it for the end, because by the end you kind of get tired and it's not appropriate. For passages, maybe just 5 minutes are left. You cannot really do a decision making set at that. So ideally, what I recommend to my students is you start with verbal, then you do DM, and then you do quant. In verbal, if you believe that you are stretching or going above your, ideal time limit, then what you need to do is, leave out the questions which are single questions. Maybe you can come back to those single questions in the end. Decision making will not have a single question. Quant will have some single questions, which is anyways the last section, or maybe some leftover questions from the verbal part. But do not do DM in the end. Doing decision making in the beginning also is not really a great idea. You are not in the flow of the paper. Your juices are not really flowing. You are not at full concentration, full speed. That's why I recommend attempting DM in the exam. Please note, attempting DM in the middle of the exam. Please note that decision making is the most scoring section. So you need to devote, your full resources, your best time, your best energy to decision making. Another thing is, 21 questions in decision making. It's very easy to go through all of them. I am once again going through all of them and attempting all of them are very different things. Only attempt the questions that you are dead sure of. Only attempt the questions that you are dead sure of. Do not attempt all the questions, but you will have enough time to go through all the questions, and that's what I recommend that you do. You need to be ROI conscious that what type of questions you are picking up. Is the passage too big, too small? There are just 3 questions associated with it. First thing that I recommend to do, in all probability, highest chances, there will be 21 questions in decision making. There will be 7 sets. Each set will have 3 questions. That is what is expected. If that is the case, you will take less than 1 minute to figure out if what I'm saying is true in the paper or not. It might change, but let's say assume that this is true. Then every passage that you pick, just see how big the passage is and B, how big the options are. See, you will see in decision making, some of the questions will be, a question and 5 options. And then some of the questions will be question, 5 statements or 4 statements, rank them in a particular order. Or out of these 5, which 3 will you pick? So these type of questions, that out of these 5, which 3 will you pick or rank them in a priority order, these are always the harder questions. So you should actually avoid them if possible. The other questions where just a question and 5 options are there, they're typically on the easier side. So those are the ones that you should try to do. And while solving, when in doubt, do the right thing, remove any sort of ethical dilemmas, and what would Batman do should be your ideal goal when you are trying to solve a question. So keep that in mind. That's pretty much it in terms of a presentation that I had for today. We, as said before, we have an online XAT decision making course. It has 50 plus videos. I believe it is closer to 100 right now. It has all previous year questions from 2008 till 2020. We have covered all of them. 100 new questions in the form of 5 sectional mocks. 5 full-length XAT mocks are also available when you register for it for a small additional fee. So full-length XAT mocks are available at an additional fee. The course is for $699. However, you can use the coupon code CLASS to get you a 10% discount. For more details, you can mail us on handagafunda@gmail.com. I will try and maybe take a couple more minutes. So we are 22 minutes into it, 23 minutes into it. So for the next 5 minutes or so, I'll try and answer any questions that you guys have. So if you have any questions, you can use the chat window. I can see Shikhar, Samir. These are the guys who are online. I'll wait maybe another minute or so. I don't really see. Okay. So I have a few questions. Chandresh Bajpayee, how should we distribute our time in the exam for section? So Chandresh, it depends upon what part you are good in, what part you are bad in terms of verbal and quant. I will say give whatever time is required to, decision making so that you can go through all the questions. In verbal, and quant. Figure out one area which will be your scoring area and one area where you'll try and clear the cutoff. So ideally speaking, around 50 minutes is the ideal time for all three sections. I say 50, 50, 50 is what you should target, but obviously you should be able to adjust it a little bit. So 50, 50, 50, keep that as the goal. And then adjust it depending upon what you're finding easy, what you're finding difficult, and stuff like that. Then Samir Walia wants to know ideal attempt for decision making. Well, as much as you can, do not guess. But I would say, let's say, if you are trying to just clear the cutoff, I would say anywhere from 12 to 13 attempts is good enough, because you will not get all of them right. So an attempt of 12, 13 maybe gives you a margin of maybe one or two incorrect questions. That way, you will clear the sectional cutoff for decision making for even XLRI. But once again, a very important but, decision making, you should not be looking to clear the cutoff. You should be looking to score well in it. And there is no limit to what you can score. Cutoffs for that section wise. Let me see if I had the slide somewhere. I think I had some data. Let me see if I can find that. I think the cutoffs typically remain in the single digits. Okay, yes. So as far as the cutoffs are concerned, I don't know if you guys can, I will be able to share this screen or not. Let me see if I can share the PPT. Okay, can you guys see this? The sectional cutoffs part. I don't know if it is very readable or not, so I'll tell you. The cutoff for typically for the verbal section is around 80 percentile. Okay, I think it should be visible now. Yeah, so around 80 percentile is the sectional cutoff for the top colleges, which is around 6-7 marks in verbal. 80 percentile for decision making is around 8-9. For quant, it's around 7-8. That's the traditional one. Quantitative aptitude sectional cutoff is typically around 90 percentile for XLRI BM. So that's the best college under XLRI. For that, you need around 9-10. For GK, which is again just considered by XLRI, you get 6 to 7 questions correct. That should be good enough. You get 6 to 7 questions correct. That should be good enough. So Samir, questions on DILR. So questions on, so you can't really expect any questions on LR per se. You can't really expect any questions on LR per se, but you do get some questions on DI. So that's 2 sets on DI is what you can expect. Then can a student with 85 percentile in CAT push to 99 plus in that? I think that's very unrealistic. See, at the end of the day, percentile is not about how much you know or how much you are prepared. Percentile is kind of a rank, which means that 85 percentile means that out of 2 lakh people, you were roughly ranked 30,000 over there. 99 percentile would mean that you are ranked 2,000. Now, it's unlikely that someone who had 30,000 in November will get to rank 2,000 in January. Not impossible, but it's highly, highly unlikely. It is possible that you messed up your CAT paper and then you do very well in the XAT paper, but difficult. Minimum questions we should attempt. I think you should look at that sectional cutoff slide that I talked about a few minutes ago. That should give you an idea. Your goal for minimum should be 80 percentile in each of these sections so that sectional cutoffs don't become a problem. How to prepare for the GK section? How is it evaluated? Is there a cutoff for GK? If yes, what is it? Okay. So Prajakta, for GK, there's not much you can do in the time that is left. Focus completely on current affairs, especially on the business end of the current affairs. That's something that you should do in the time that is left. How it is evaluated? Most probably, again, I'm using the word most probably because officially there is no such info. Most probably, there is no negative marking in GK. Most probably, you need to do maybe 6 or 7 questions correct out of 25. You need to do 6 to 7 questions correct. See, this is not something that gets declared officially, so it's very hard to say. Also, this data, the GK data is relevant only for XLRI. So again, not much information comes out via that. If you get 14, 15 questions in decision making, I believe you will be probably 97, 98 percentile. Chandresh, minimum questions we should attempt in verbal and quant. Again, I would say target 10, 10 each, and most of them should be right. I think that's all the questions that we have. So thank you, Chandresh, for the questions, and thank you others for attending the class. I would like to end today's session here. Once again, in case you are planning to prepare for decision making, there is more than enough time. You have roughly 15, 10, 12 odd days to prepare for it. That is more than enough. If you give 2 hours for it, I can guarantee you will clear the sectional cutoff. It's very simple. It's very easy. All you need is a little bit of practice. For that, you can use our course, go through previous year questions, previous year videos, and that should do the trick. I hope you guys enjoyed this session. Like, comment, and subscribe, as the YouTubers say. But more than that, please register for our course. And if you register for our course, please use the coupon code CLASS, CLASS. Not only it will give you a 10% discount, it will also tell us how effective these sessions are so that we can keep on having these sessions in future. That's it for today. Thank you guys. In case of any questions, you can reach out to me via email on ravihanda@gmail.com or my contact number, which is 976514262. I've mentioned that on the chat window as well. Thank you for coming to class. I'll end it here. Bye everyone. Bye Vinay. Bye Rakshat. Bye Chandresh. Bye guys.